This is Forum. I'm John Michaels, Public Affairs Radio Director. Going to be talking with Peter Tanz, who's with the Midwest Communications, and your exact title. I'm going to let you explain what that is.
I am Vice President of Operations.
Now, how many stations are we talking about?
Midwest Communications has over 50 stations in 6 states, and by the end of 2013, we'll be 62 stations in 7 states.
Now, some of these are familiar names to us, even though we haven't been there. Sheboygan, that sounds like a commercial I hear on TV every once in a while.
Sheboygan, Wisconsin, home of the Kohler Company and Johnsonville Brats, right along Lake Michigan there, just north of Milwaukee.
Is that far from Oshkosh?
Yes, south of Oshkosh.
Okay.
Yes, another station that we do business in. Another town, I should say.
Well, yeah, there's Duluth, Hibbings,
Kalamazoo,
Lansing, and Wausau. Now, that's an insurance company, isn't it?
Yes, Wausau Insurance.
Mm-hmm. And a railroad, I think, was big at that name.
Actually, Wausau, the depot that used to be featured on the 60-minute program, that was a combination of 2 railroad depots in Wausau, and they merged them together to make that logo. But there was, back in the day, the east-west train and the north-south train, and of course, they both had a depot in town.
Well, the idea is that you're a Midwest Communications.
Yes.
Now, that sometimes can be confused with some other broadcast companies a little bit, isn't it?
Yes, there are several other broadcasting companies that have Midwest in their name. 2 actually based out of Wisconsin. Our home office is Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Now, Midwest Television is San Diego.
Yes.
And there's Midwest Radio and Television. That's WCCO. We used to be part of that with our old owners a long time ago.
And Midwest Family, which is the other Wisconsin-based company. And of course, we've had several folks mistake Midwest for Midco, which were the former owners of Kello.
Well, Tom Simmons with Mid-Continent Duke was at his wedding.
Yes.
And he used to compete with you in radio days back in Wisconsin.
And we should probably tell people who Duke is. Duke is the president of our company and the founder of Midwest Communications. Duke founded the company in Wausau, Wisconsin in 1958 with a 250-watt AM radio station.
That would go about how far?
250-watt radio station during the day would cover the city of Sioux Falls. At night, you'd have a hard time hearing it in all parts of the city.
And that was rock and roll.
That was rock and roll, yes. He put a rock radio station on the air back when kids were first learning about Buddy Holly and those kind of musicians, and everyone was listening to rock music on AM radio.
And Elvis could only be shown on the Ed Sullivan Show from the waist up.
Exactly, yes.
Yep. But that was a change in the times back then.
It was.
And rock and roll, they thought it would never last.
Yeah, they did. They did. You know, Wausau, Wisconsin, like most towns, had one radio station, and the Federal Communications Commission, under pressure, was allowing more frequencies and allowing that second channel to come on in most cities. And the folks at the newspaper that owned the radio station in Wausau, they went to the quote unquote good frequency and sold off the other one to Duke.
Now, how old was Duke at that time?
Duke was in college, so he was a young man at the time, and had born and raised in Wausau, grew up there. His family was in the music store business there, and so he wanted to return home and get in the radio business.
An entrepreneur. Now, it wasn't easy to get a license back in those days.
No, it was not. It was not easy to get a license, but this was Duke's passion, and he wanted to do it. They secured they were able to convince the other owner to sell to them, and they were the competition. And so that main station in Wausau, did all the standards music and the long form programs, and Duke's station did the rock and roll. And at the same time, then Duke is also a musician, plays several instruments, and was involved in a polka band. And recorded rock and roll music in Wisconsin. So Duke is the only person who is in both the Wisconsin Polka Hall of Fame and the Wisconsin Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I've been to the Polka Hall of Fame in Cleveland.
Yes.
And there was, the guy that's written all the polka music songs was there getting his...
Not like a Frankie Yankovic or somebody like that. Is that who you're thinking of? Yes.
Frankie, he was there with his wife. And he was getting his Grammy Award to take home because it was in the Hall of Fame. It's an old high school that's been renovated to be a Hall of Fame. It's at the same place as the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, only a little other part of
Down the road.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the minute he found out we were a DJ, he says, "Have you heard my latest record?" He's like, he was 80 years old. And we had a picture taken with him, heck of a nice guy. And his wife was trying to drag him out of there, and he would have talked to us all day long. But, okay, you're in Green Bay as your center.
Green Bay is the home office, and that's where the president of the company, Duke, keeps his office.
Now, as an entrepreneur in college, he started something that was kind of new.
Yes.
Still back then. Radio's been around, but it was like one or two stations was all you could get in most markets.
Yep. You could have one AM station and one FM station. And so that was 1958. In 1964, Duke was able to secure a license for an FM station, which in those early days, they would simulcast the AM and FM, the same programming on both channels. And that was, the early 60s. I was very young in the early 60s, but I was fortunate and didn't realize it at the time. But my uncle was the local Admiral television dealer. So we had all these high-end Admiral appliances. I didn't realize it, but we were the first family on the block to have color television, and we had an FM stereo console radio. So I was as a young kid, I was always looking for these FM stations that you could get on this console stereo.
With headphones that sounded great.
With headphones, it sounded wonderful.
I remember going to the South Dakota State Fair, playing a reel-to-reel tape in a home trailer to show people what FM was going to sound like. And back in those days, we even had this hour brought to you by the whole hour. Mm-hmm. And it'd be no commercials.
No commercials.
Yeah,
no.
That was a big thing back then. Yeah. Before FM. It's hard to explain that to people nowadays.
No, you're right. But things move forward. Things are always moving forward. And we'll probably talk about that in a little bit.
Well, I was going to say, that's why we're having you on. And you didn't ask to be on the show. I asked you because it's so exciting and so interesting what you've been doing since you bought the stations here in Sioux Falls. You're one of the larger clusters of radio stations in your 50-station group.
Yes, Sioux Falls is. Sioux Falls is one of our largest markets. And we're very happy to be in Sioux Falls. Duke has watched the growth of the Sioux Falls area and the growth of South Dakota, and when the opportunity presented itself, it was certainly an area where we wanted to be a part of this community.
It's not the first time that you offered to buy, I think, in Sioux Falls. You've been looking at us for a long time.
Yes, Duke did mention that on one of his visits that he had looked at this market before.
Now, you recently also bought Fargo.
Well, the Fargo stations, the KFGO group of stations up in Fargo, we're in the phase of that where they'll join the company this spring.
With FCC approval.
With FCC approval and all the paperwork that has to be done.
So we're talking Lincoln, Nebraska, or Omaha?
Well, Lincoln, Nebraska, and Omaha, we were in the Nebraskas. It was actually my job to oversee our stations in Lincoln and Omaha back in the 1990s. And we had KFMQ in Lincoln and KLMS, which was the Kello basically of Lincoln, Nebraska back in the day. Those two stations, and that was back during the years when you could only own again one AM and one FM station, and when the FCC changed their rules and allowed people to own more than two stations in a market, the decision was made to sell those stations and beef up our operations where we already had stations.
So it's not the first time you've been in this market?
Correct.
No, right.
Correct. No, I very much enjoyed my years in Nebraska.
Now, one of the ideas that you had, that I think you explained before, is that Sioux Falls and Fargo is kind of the I-29 channel.
Yes. There's an awful lot of growth along Interstate 29. Certainly, this is a wonderful area to live in, and we just think it'll be marvelous to be involved in both communities. There's sports competition where the station in Sioux Falls is carrying the Sioux Falls team, and the station in Fargo is carrying the opposing Fargo team, and to be able to provide that level of service to both communities. I think will make the stations in both communities better.
So you play Green Bay in Green Bay, and you play Minnesota Vikings when you're in Sioux Falls.
Correct.
Yep. Okay. Now, the idea of radio, though, a lot of people thought movies were going to put radio out of business. They thought that television was going to put radio out of business. Yeah, radio isn't going to go away.
No, radio is not going to go away. Radio is a one-to-one communication method that I believe will be with us in some form for long past any of our lifetimes.
Well, you look at nowadays a 55-inch TV, and everybody sees the same picture. But when everybody listens to a radio, they see it in their personal mind's eye, theater of the mind, any way you want to say it. But it's individual.
It is.
Yep.
It is. And it is certainly theater of the mind. And the only thing holding back radio is potentially those that don't take the time to produce good content for the radio.
Well, that's just it. If you're driving from Omaha to Sioux Falls to Fargo, you're going to hear what's going on in your area. And the agriculture aspect is one thing that you're really looking very hard at.
Agriculture is very important here. And so we have a lot of folks in this area and up in the North Dakota region and Minnesota, Iowa, that's within the coverage area of these radio stations that are involved in agribusiness. And so it's important to make sure that we serve those people also.
Well, that's part of what's been happening with the change that happened this week is that Cool FM 107 is now part of KELO. It's now KELQ.
Yes.
And it's kind of KELO AM simulcast with that now so that people can hear it on the FM.
Correct. So from just north of Sioux City to just south of Watertown along I-29, the programming on KELO, the original KELO programming, can be heard on AM on 1320. It can be heard on FM on 107.9 FM. It can be heard by clicking on our website, KELO.com. It can be heard by using TuneIn Radio. It can be heard by other internet type of apps. But whether you want to get it on AM, FM, or the internet, you're going to be able to find KELO's programming.
And the oldies, you can still get that now on 85.9.
Yes, people very much love oldies music in this area, and they wanted it on a signal that was a little better signal right in the city of Sioux Falls. And so, yes, the oldies are now at 95.7 FM under the brand of Cool. And there was some older music or classic music, depending upon how you want to define it, that was already being played on 95.7. And so now, instead of having 95.7, 107.9, and of course 92.5 all playing popular music, we've kind of broken it down to two distinct choices on 92.5 and 95.7.
And Big Scott's going to be afternoons.
Yes, and Scott is going to be doing a live local afternoon program on 92.5, bringing his talent to that station. And so this is just, and then Mark Cartwright continues to do his morning show on 95.7, and all designed to serve the community.
Well, some people might say this is a different direction. It's more live and more local.
Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Well, what's in the future for radio as you see it right now?
Well, the future of radio is the future that has it as it's been since the beginning, which is local is the key. You have to be connected to the community. And you really understand that. In my job as operations manager of the company, I have the opportunity to go to different cities and meet people in all of these different towns, and people are interested in their town. They're interested in their tax base. They're interested in their roads. They're interested in their sports teams. And so even though as a country, the national media talks a lot about what goes on in Washington, and we always hear about what's happening there, and we only really hear about what's happening out in the rest of the country when something bad happens. We have stations up in Duluth, Minnesota. Beautiful town. Duluth had a flood summer before last, and all of a sudden Duluth is all over the news for 2 days because a town built on the side of a hill flooded, which was an interesting thing. I was there that day, but that's another story. But since people care about their community, the radio in each community has to focus on what the people are talking about, and that's how radio continues to be actively involved in its community.
If things are to change, they have to educate and communicate, and that's really what radio does. It's not just music and news.
And when someone introduces and creates new platforms by which to distribute audio, the people here that are creating this local content, as the term is, or basically talking about local things, they'll put their voices on those new platforms, and we'll continue to move forward. So with whatever inventions are created.
Speaking with Pete Tanz of Midwest Communications out of Green Bay, but you get a lot of frequent flyer miles or automobile miles as your job right now.
Yes, I do. I do travel around the upper Midwest quite a bit.
Well, the idea of getting back to what Midwest Communications is, it's new to Sioux Falls. You've been here now for about 3 or 4 months, and things are sounding great as the future of radio in Sioux Falls is becoming very exciting now.
Well, Sioux Falls is a wonderful community, and Sioux Falls is a really big town. I've noticed that there are a lot of businesses here that you don't see in other similar-sized towns, and I think that it's probably because folks that want to be in the lower 48 states, folks that want to be in the upper Midwest, they want to have a location in South Dakota. They want to have a location in North Dakota, and that South Dakota location, so they can say they're in all 50 states, is probably somewhere here in Sioux Falls. So living in Sioux Falls, there's a wide variety of options that you wouldn't see in a comparable sized city in other parts of the country.
Well, Peter, why did you get in radio? How old were you? Duke was in college. How old were you?
I got into radio when I was 19. And my mother threw me off the sofa. She worked at the local newspaper in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and she called me up and said, "Hey, there's a job at the local radio station. The Wanheads are coming out in a couple hours. You better call before the paper comes out and call about this job." And I did, and come to find out that I knew somebody at the radio station, and so I got a job changing tapes on the Beautiful Music Station's automation system. So if we go back to 1979, a similar type machine was on Kello FM, and so the person had to take in every hour, feed the machine and take care of the machine, and that was my first job.
We had old Revox machines.
Yes.
And carts, rotary carts.
Rotary carts, the old Schaefer automation systems.
Yep. Well, Pete, the passion, though, the people that work in radio, the 40-hour week, they don't care about that.
Oh no! This is a lifestyle. This is a true people in radio are truly in radio because of their love of other people, their love of communication, and their love of what we do. And as a young fellow there on the FM Beautiful Music radio station, people my age, the kids in 1979, they were all listening to WEAQ in Eau Claire, the top 40 station playing popular music on the AM dial. And I just so wanted to be a disc jockey on the AM radio station and be able to talk to girls on the telephone. And that's what I really wanted to do. And so when the program director, the fellow that schedules the disc jockeys, when he told me that I didn't have a good enough voice and that I should go find another line of work, well, I was just crushed. And so I went into television. And I did television news for a short period of time and worked at a small television station in Rice Lake, Wisconsin, when a friend of mine that worked for Duke called me and said they need a salesman in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and I suggested you might be a good person for that job. You should apply for it. And Duke's sales manager hired me, and so I joined Midwest Communications in 1985, and I've been with Duke ever since.
It's hard to get away from it. You always come back.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, Duke, the business is more or less in the family there, too.
Yes. The Midwest Communications is truly a family business. It is not a public corporation. It is not a public stock corporation. It's not traded on any markets. It is a family business that is focused on serving the communities. And Duke's adult children are in the business also, and all have critical roles in making sure that the company continues as a successful company.
It's a generational thing.
Yes.
A real family business. Now, 50 stations, are you looking at growing bigger?
The company has grown. I know you didn't experience any of this here in South Dakota, but parts of the rest of the country in recent years went through a recession, and Midwest Communications was one of the few broadcasting companies that actually grew during the recession. And yes, if there are good opportunities out there and communities where we think it's the right fit for us, yes, we would like to continue to grow.
And you've been with Duke how many years?
28 years.
So somebody out there that's in high school and say, radio, I don't know. What can you say to him? What do you need to do in high school or college to say, well, maybe there's an opportunity to have a lifelong career in radio?
There is a little YouTube video floating around right now that's very popular, and the title of it is What They Don't Teach You in High School. And every young person needs to learn how to code. And I'll admit, I don't know how to code. I didn't learn that myself. But the future of our world, and as computer-based as it is, and as digitally oriented as our future will be, you need to know mathematics and you need to know how to code. You certainly need to know how to run a computer. I was blessed in that the small town high school that I went to just outside of Eau Claire in 1976 put in a computer connected to the University of Wisconsin at La Crosse. So I had, at a high school age, the ability to get involved with that. And of course, I've worked with computers at various stages all the way through my career. But, the first thing you have to know, no matter what you want to do if you're in high school, is you have to know how to run a computer and run it well. And then if you want to be in the performing arts, perform. Join theater, be involved in singing, be involved in anything where you can perform in front of other people. And if you want to be in the broadcasting side, come down to the local radio station, meet people at the radio station, and see if there's a part-time job that's available at a strange hour of the day or night, because there always needs to be somebody at the radio station, and just take whatever job comes your way and go to work.
Well, we have a guy that's new in our sales area here that is very computer-oriented. And that's the reason why it's not just KELO AM, KELQ FM, and KELO.com. There's a combination there.
Yes.
And putting things on the internet, it's not just radio anymore, is it?
No. We're able to provide written words. We're able to provide for our music stations a lot of background information about the songs that we play. There's another level of interaction with people who listen to the radio. You can just listen to it, or you can actually interact using the website and speak to the announcers, find out about the music, obviously read the day's news, listen to things that were on the radio previously that are saved as a podcast. So the internet opens up a lot of opportunities for connecting with listeners
and for the advertiser.
Oh, and for advertisers, absolutely. There's this is one of the last things in the world that are absolutely, positively, completely free. Exactly. Other than paying for the power to get it, there is no charge to the listener for using this product whatsoever. You don't have to pay the cable company to hook up to it. You just have to pay the power bill. And so in order to provide this service completely free to the community and pay for all of the employees and everything else, we do that by allocating a certain amount of time to advertisers, and the advertisers then are patronized by the listeners, and it's a system of capitalism that has worked well for many, many years.
Well, if you know how to wrap wire around a coil, you can even do it without power.
Oh, yes. I haven't made a crystal radio set in decades.
And, that's what I'm saying. We go way back to, I think, 1926. Del Rapids had a radio station. The Argus Leader was one of the first radio stations in Sioux Falls. We've got a good radio history here in good old Sioux Falls, South Dakota. But the idea that radio is a future career, it's a future opportunity. It can be something that even an entrepreneur out of college can start still if they want to. And the aspect of radio is that it's your friend. It's your person you can feel like they know you in a way sometimes if you listen to them, for a while.
This is certainly a business where the users of the business take ownership of the business. They take great interest in changes that you make. They take great interest in providing you input on whether or not they like or dislike something that you're doing. And again, because you're here, we have a license from the federal government to serve the community. And so it's important that we listen to the people that use the product to make sure that we're serving them and giving them what they want.
Well, Pete, I took computers when I was in college, but we had to punch holes in cards.
Oh, I did key punch for a year in college myself. Made a fine punch kit picture of Snoopy.
Well, see, that's just it. We can create a picture in everybody's mind, but it's different in the individual based on their experiences, how they see it, and that's what radio is. Now, are we going to see any new technology on the radio horizon?
Yes. We were talking earlier about the Revox machine, and technology has continued to evolve and will continue to evolve. And, what it is maybe hasn't been invented yet. What it is maybe is like Steve Jobs, and it's in a garage somewhere and someone's tinkering with it. But as we mentioned earlier, it doesn't really matter what the delivery device is as long as we have the people here locally and they're creating the content and they're involved in the community. Whatever the future technologies and delivery devices are, we'll adapt them and use them for our best good.
Well, some people might remember the Dick Tracy radio wristwatch.
Yes.
Apple's coming out with a iPod.
I have it on my arm right now.
You do?
Yes. I wear a device on my arm that's made by Apple that allows me to listen to FM radio. It allows me to listen to other music. It tells the time. And it's a very, I love it, especially when I travel. It's all right there on my wrist.
Well, they're going to actually have the iPhone on your wrist.
Yes.
Coming up with that. And of course, it's got the radio and everything, too. I had the old MSN watch that Microsoft Network had little transmitters in all the cities. You could get your email and that type of thing. It's changing. And that's part of, if you want to know how things are changing, listen to the radio.
And things are always, they've always been changing. When you go back and look, and you just look back and go, it has evolved dramatically. A wonderful place that you should take your family. I'm going to do a little commercial here. If you've never been there, is the Henry Ford Greenfield Village just outside of Detroit, Michigan. Mr. Ford captured all the great things from the early 19th century and brought them all to this place. And you can take your children there and you can show them steam engines and you can show them big machines and you can show them a village from that era and, where the Wright brothers designed the airplane and where Edison had his laboratory. He dismantled Edison's laboratory and brought it there. And so many things that we take for granted and certainly our children take for granted, all their humble beginnings he put in one place. It's a marvelous summer trip.
Well, that sounds like a good place to visit, and our time is almost up, but Peter Tanz, Midwest Communications, if you were to say in one paragraph, I'll give you the last word here, what is Midwest Communications to you?
Midwest Communications is a group of talented, dedicated people who serve the communities in which they live to make the life of everybody in that community better. Radio is at the pulse of every community, and to have a strong organization that can help people raise money, help people run their business, help people be successful, help people with being a companion and a friend, that's what we do.
And always progressing and keeping up with the community, creating the things that the community can do to make everything go forward. I want to thank you very much for being with us on Forum.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I've really enjoyed this. They never let me talk on the radio. This is fun.
Climb into the wild blue yonder with Civil Air Patrol. Hi, this is Lieutenant Colonel Rick Larson, inviting you to check out our unique aviation program for pilots and non-pilots alike. Ages 12 to 99, welcome. We offer volunteers a chance to serve your community, state, and nation while performing important missions for America. We meet Thursday nights at 6:30 at Joe Foss Field. Call 367-4870 and check us out online at GoCivilAirPatrol.com. Civil Air Patrol, more than meets the skies.